Building muscle while burning fat at the same time. It sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? After all, if this was possible, wouldn't everyone be doing it? Well, that's a great question because I'm here to tell you that it absolutely is possible and probably way simpler than you think it is. If you were to ask most people in the gym if it's possible to build muscle and lose fat at the same time, you'd probably receive completely contradicting answers. Some people believe that as long as you're lifting weights, you're gonna build muscle. Meanwhile, others point to the scientific explanation of thermodynamics for why it's impossible to build muscle while eating in a calorie deficit to also lose fat. But who here is actually right? Well, for starters, there is one cold hard fact that no one can dispute. That is, if you're not in a caloric deficit, you can't be losing fat. With that in mind, the only way building muscle and simultaneously losing fat would be possible would be if you could build muscle while in a calorie deficit. As to whether or not this is possible, the answer is an undeniably yes. Although this is going to depend significantly on the degree of the calorie deficit. For instance, if you're in a significant 500 to 1,000 calorie deficit, there is almost no chance you'll build any muscle in this state. However, if you were only in a 100 to 200 calorie deficit, perhaps even a little lower, it would be very possible to put on small amounts of lean muscle tissue. In fact, this is an actual concept known as body recomposition or just recomping. Most people who recomp try to eat at their maintenance calories, meaning that they're neither in a deficit nor a surplus. If you're being technical, however, it's essentially impossible to ever be sure of this, and it's even more realistic to assume that a person eating maintenance calories is actually just in a very tiny deficit or a surplus, depending on the day. Regardless, by giving your body enough calories to fuel and repair itself, but not so much that it has excess, which can be stored as body fat, you're effectively in a state where muscle gain is possible while fat gain is not. Now, it's important that you understand that recomping is an extremely slow process, however. You'll gain muscle much slower while at maintenance calories than you would if you were eating in a noticeable caloric surplus. Similarly, fat loss is extremely slow in this state as well, and sometimes might not even be noticeable for long periods of time. However, the important thing is that recomping allows you to consistently improve every single week. No matter how small the change, you will have gained more muscle, lost more fat, and likely have gained more strength than you did the week before. Now, with that understood, it's now time to discuss the most effective way that you can recomp. As I mentioned earlier, this process is actually extremely simple and consists of just two variables. Variable number one concerns your diet and is largely something we've already kind of discussed in the previous part of this video, which is just to eat at maintenance calories or in a very slight deficit of 50 to 200 calories maximum. In case you don't understand what maintenance calories means, it's basically just when you consume the exact amount of calories as you expend. For example, if your metabolism, or more specifically, your basal metabolic rate, burns 1,500 calories per day, and your workouts and other physical activity burns an extra 800 on average, your daily calorie expenditure would be 2,300 calories. Therefore, to eat at maintenance, you'd want to be eating 2,300 calories. And if you wanted to eat in a slight deficit to make sure that you lose fat a bit quicker, you just have to eat slightly less than this number, such as 2,200 calories. You'll also want to increase your protein intake, which is something that is highly recommended anytime that you're in a calorie deficit anyways. This is because your body will break down some of the protein you eat into energy if it isn't receiving enough calories. And as a result, not all of the protein you eat is actually going towards repairing your muscles. Now, to solve this problem, you just need to eat slightly more protein than you usually do, which is ideally anywhere between 0.8 to 1.2 grams per pound of your body weight. Now, variable number two, as simple as it sounds, is just to keep lifting weights. However, if you actually want to make progress and see considerable muscle growth results, you're going to have to lift with intent. You see, it generally requires extremely minimal weekly volume to maintain your muscle mass, with just 2 or 3 semi-challenging sets per muscle group often being enough to avoid muscle breakdown. And surprisingly, it actually doesn't require that much more volume to gain muscle mass either, with even some advanced lifters being able to see incredible results from just 8 to 10 weekly sets per muscle group. The problem is, though, when you're eating at maintenance or in a caloric deficit, these volume requirements increase. Therefore, if you want to ensure that you're actually gaining muscle while remaining within this fat burning state, you're gonna have to do more than you usually do in the gym. This increase should not only be in terms of your workout volume, but your intensity needs to increase as well. In other words, to see the best results from a recomp, you'll have to do more weekly sets per muscle group than you would normally do, the vast majority of which should be very challenging and take your muscles near failure. With that said, as with anything related to the human body, there are always exceptions. For instance, a beginner who just started lifting weights can build a ton of muscle extremely quickly while in a caloric deficit, simply because the training stimulus is so intense and new to their body. As such, building muscle and losing fat is a very realistic goal that just about every novice lifter should have. Now, on the other side of this, an advanced bodybuilder who has been lifting for 10 plus years will require a much greater training stimulus and energy intake to even have a chance at building any more muscle at all. Of course, there's no way I could talk about exceptions and not mention genetics, which obviously plays a very significant role in body composition. Apart from the fact that genetics can greatly influence how much muscle mass a person's body is capable of putting on, its effects when it comes to body fat are even more consequential for overall body composition. And it's no secret that some of our bodies naturally hold on to much higher levels of fat than others. And often that's a result of hormone levels, metabolic rate, body fat distribution, and a plethora of other genetically influenced factors. Now, for a person who had a six-pack at the age of 6 and effortlessly maintained it all throughout their growing years, well, staying lean is almost not even something they have to worry about. As a result, this person could basically just eat in a slight surplus for most of their life and build considerable amounts of muscle mass without ever needing to lose much fat at all. Obviously, that does not describe most of us, but it goes to show you that genetics can greatly influence the feasibility of our body recomposition, and it will definitely work better for some of us than it does for others. So, in conclusion, building muscle while simultaneously losing fat is without a doubt possible. And as you hopefully picked up from this video, it's extremely simple. Just adjust your diet so that you're eating in a tiny caloric deficit while also training consistently with high intensity, and you'll absolutely improve in both aspects of your physique. In case I didn't make it clear enough already, this process will be extremely slow, however, but the positive of never having to regress in your training or appearance makes it all worth it. I would love to help you with any of your health and fitness goals. So if you want someone to simplify the process for you, then make sure you check out the links in the description box below to see all the programs that I offer. With that said, thank you for watching my video, and as always, get busy, get after it, and God bless.